Chris, okay. I just finished a movie, guys, just a little while ago. I know Andy had talked to me about it around the time it came out, and I thought I had missed it, really, because just a whole bunch of other projects that I had, and so I'm glad that he kept kind of bringing it back to my remembrance. So credit to Andy, and I'm glad I didn't miss it because I watched it and I really could identify with so much of it.
Oh,
Chris, as I was watching it, Chris, just the first few minutes of it, I was like, this guy knows the industry because I reported on the industry. I started in '94, working in the Christian music industry, although not in hair metal. I'm more of a pop rock guy, but very familiar. When you name dropped GMA Week and all that stuff, I'm like, yeah, he's very familiar with this. And so anyway, I just finished it. I honestly, when I was first watching it, I couldn't tell the tone of it. And I didn't know if this is, as this outsider who is just come in to make fun of, the Christian subculture or whatever, which it's an easy target, right? But then I found so much heart in it as well. And certainly unexpected there toward the end, the tenderness, that I found in it. So I thought it was great. And ask me 15 minutes into it, I probably wouldn't have said I thought it would be great. And yet at the end, I thought it was really a really good movie, really good capsule of growing up, in a certain culture.
I think that Brian makes his entrance about 15 minutes in the movie. So I'm glad we had you, Brian.
Yeah, that's right.
Brian would never have finished if it hadn't been for your entrance. Yeah, thank you, Dwayne, for noticing. Yeah, I grew up in evangelical church youth group culture and Christian music, or CCM as we called it, whatever the style, pop, rock, metal. It was all, a part of that world. I was a child of the 80s. So yeah, that was the era of Stryper and Amy Grant, as we see in the movie,
right.
But also people like Michael W. Smith and Steve Taylor. And so, yeah, a lot of those memories came back as I was writing the movie, for sure.
It felt definitely, to me, had an Almost Famous vibe to it. I'm sure that probably influenced your work a little bit. But I just love, there are parts of the culture that are not seen, right? And you've shed a light on a part of the culture that, there's a lot of kids that grew up like you and that grew up like me as well. So what's your connection with Georgia? Because I saw in an interview that Brian is from Atlanta. Is that right?
That's right.
I'm from Marietta, actually.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Marietta. So, and it seems like the action kind of takes place around Atlanta, and it was shot in Columbus. Yeah. So is that where you're from, Chris?
No, I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, very close. Six Flags over Georgia was my theme park for all my
Me too. Yeah.
I'm sure we all went
Me
there.
too.
No, yeah. Georgia helps filmmakers make movies, even little independent filmmakers like us. And I didn't know. I think when we first started talking to Brian about playing Skip Wick, the band manager in the movie, I don't think I knew you were from Georgia, Brian, until I did a little research. I mean, you've exorcised all of the Georgia out of your accent. I mean, occasionally I can hear.
Well, so is Dwayne. Dwayne's is gone too, right?
Yeah, well, it depends who I'm around. If I'm around Georgia people, then I start getting real country again.
Yeah. And when they win the World Series and the college football national championship, then they kind of get bowed up a little over there.
Yeah,
but right, I think it was important to set the movie in the South. I mean, that was where like this Christian youth group subculture really was. I mean, it was in California, it was in the Midwest. There were parts of the Northeast that had it, but it really permeated a lot. I think, Brian, you you went to a Christian school, but you weren't really in a Christian youth group like I was. But you were
Yeah,
still aware of, the whole evangelical subculture in the South, of course. How could you not be?
sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, I left Atlanta a long time ago. I also did quite a bit of work to lose the accent because of my line of work as well. But no, sure. I went to Christian school. I mean, I went to 2 Christian schools in Atlanta when I was there, and actually did participate in youth group fellowship when I was there for a good time. I was always slightly adjacent, but certainly aware. And I think Amy Grant was my mom's favorite artist. I mean, for real during that time. So I was listening to Amy Grant whether I wanted to or not during that time. So yeah, and I was aware of the sort of the heavy metal Christian music. That was not something that I was into at the time either. But I think that that's an awesome setting for the movie that allows these creatives to
Right.
to really have some fun with that. I think that really it's as you said, it's about the subculture and the fact that it's hair metal, or if it was pop or whatever else. I think that that's easily translatable.
Right.
Yeah, Dwayne,
Just
we wanted to have fun with the characters, not make fun of the characters. And I think
And
that would be where we try to settle in on a tone that's kind of nostalgic, and because I love the characters. I even
right.
love Brian's character. That's a real kind of broken guy, but I love that character too. So I think if you go into it kind of cheering for those characters, wanting them, even when they're weird and stupid, you're kind of pulling for them still. I think that takes maybe some of the bite out of something that might be more of a parody or something. It's not a parody. The movie's not a parody.
Right. Yeah, I think that's that first 15 minutes where I was trying to figure out, are we rooting for these characters? Are we are they caricatures or whatever? Just a little aside, since both of you can relate, or Brian can. I used to work at Whitewater in Marietta.
Oh, sure.
And near the Big Chicken.
Yeah.
And one of my managers came in one morning. I had opened, and he came in. He said, "Oh my gosh, Petra's playing. Dwayne is here somewhere." Because I put my Petra tape in, and it was blasting because I was the only one there. So definitely, this is a movie I can relate to. Also about Six Flags, there used to be a ride called Free Fall.
Yeah.
Yes.
My brother helped dismantle it, so he got me one of the signs. It's in my garage.
What?
I kept it.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Wow.
But I really, it just had a lot of heart to it. And Brian, I know you play this character, and he's really out there. But like Chris said, he's broken as well, and he's not really. A casual observer would say he's the villain, but he's really well-meaning, I would say, right? Would you say that?
No, I think he is well-meaning. I think that he just doesn't have the innate ability, because of some of his internal obstacles, to achieve maybe what he thinks that he can achieve. I think that this was Chris through and through and from the beginning. And I think it's actually, and something we talked about a character that is pretending. That doesn't mean that the character is bad, but that the character is pretending and trying to hide these things that are going on inside. But that doesn't mean he's not well-intentioned, right? And so it's like this takes place in the 80s. So, he's watched a lot of Sonny and Tubbs, and the way that his wardrobe, that he potentially views his lack of hair as a weakness, so he's going to cover that up to look a little more polished. And I think ultimately he probably idolized And this is certainly, people always ask me about roles like, oh, who inspired this or who did this, and that's never. I don't know. I've never been able to say, oh, this was cousin Johnny or this. What it always is sort of a combination of things. But again, I growing up in the South and being well aware, I think that Skip is a character who watched a lot of Jim Baker on television and, who watched Jimmy Swaggart and, so that they had a way that they talked and when they were able to convince people of so much. I'll tell this side story. I don't even know if I've told this before to Chris, but my grandfather, when he was alive, he was obsessed with Jim Baker. And now let me tell you something. He was not a believer in Jim Baker, but he watched Jim Baker all of the time. And there was something about the way that he talked, about the production. And we went to, I'm not going to think of the name of it. When we were kids, and we were driving through, we went to his place, whatever it was called.
Heritage USA.
Heritage USA.
Right. Yeah.
Heritage USA. And there were like 45 million Christmas lights. It was like at Christmas time. Yeah. And we went into the gift shop to buy presents for my grandfather because he was obsessed with Jim Baker. So I think, for not just Brian, who is aware and seeing these people, I think that Skip was trying to emulate what he saw as the best part of those people to convince not just the parents, but sort of everyone around him that he had more ability than maybe he did.
You have not told me that story. That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I also think this is kind of a cautionary tale because one of the things is the parents totally trusted, okay, just go on the road. This is for the Lord. As long as you're with Christian people, you're not going to get into trouble, So that's one of the things I caught from it as well, that, Skip's not the only one to blame, really. The parents really should have checked it out a little bit more and kept tabs on it. Chris, let me ask you another question. I don't want to go over time, but I'm curious as to the response in the Christian music community, or have you heard anything from that? I know it seemed like I read somewhere Stryper really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah. Well, we, I should say we tried not to make the typical, what we might call a faith-based movie,
right,
where there's maybe a Christian agenda or an evangelical agenda. We tried to just make, like you mentioned, Almost Famous, like a rock and roll movie, coming of age movie. So one thing that's been rewarding about the movie is yes, as we've encountered some of these Christian music, the artists and the fans, I would say the fans in particular, when they see Electric Jesus, they feel seen. They feel like, yeah, right, like you were talking about, like, this is my world. I mean, those guys were talking like we used to talk. But it's also been like, people that are like, I had no, I'm not a Christian. I had no idea there was a world like this, but what a strange, weird, delightful, almost Napoleon Dynamite weird
right
world.
Yeah, that's right.
And then also the music, Daniel Smith, who composed all this, the music's so good.
Yes.
And funny, some of this, lyrically, but just really solid, like listen to it kind of music.
Yeah.
That's in all the soundtracks everywhere, so you can listen to the songs. But hopefully you come out of the movie feeling like, that was a weird, strange world I'm not familiar with, and I loved it anyway. Or you come out of it saying, how did they know?
Right.
A lot of times I feel like that world I grew up in, it's like nobody knows about that. Nobody knows that we were kind of goofy, jokey teenagers, but we were also like devout. We were serious about our faith. And it seems weird even to think about it or talk about it now. It seems like is that really what it was like when you were 16? Yes, that was what it was like when I was 16. And I know some people have had not good experiences with church and their youth group experience. And I happen to have a really good one, but I even think people that are away from that, or maybe have distanced themselves from that, find a kind of nostalgic happiness in watching Electric Jesus. I think it really does connect with a lot of people for a lot of different reasons.
And that ending, just briefly, the ending, to me, the 180-degree turn, really.
Yeah.
Is that something you had in mind? I mean, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. To me, it's like, oh wow, I like this movie. Oh wow, I love this movie.
Yeah, I think the ending, I don't want to say specifically what happens. We won't give any
Right.
spoilers away, but I think if the movie is a story, I think the thing that film does that's unique for the rock band genre of movies is that the guy telling us the story, the guy we think the movie's about, he's starting to realize over the course of the movie that maybe this wasn't about me. Maybe it was
Right.
about somebody else. And when it takes him a long time to figure out who it was really about. But when he does, that's where that, I think, the emotional punch at the end comes from. And that's why that's where we end the film, because, once Eric realizes this, what all happened wasn't about me, it was actually about somebody else. I think that's a powerful moment for all of us,
Brian, how was the experience? Did you have fun doing it? Was it as much fun doing the movie as it looked like it was?
It was actually, truthfully, I had dabbled around a little bit working in Georgia. It had been a long time since I was there, and being able to spend so much time. I mean, let me be honest. It's warm in August in Columbus, Georgia. There's a spoiler alert. There's a spoiler alert for you. But I tell you, a lot of these, a lot of the people younger than me, they're not kids, young adults, I don't know, but the band members, a lot of them had been working on this movie for a long time, years, with Chris at various lengths of time, but everybody was really in it and committed and had been for a long time. And so there was a part of me that just didn't want to mess that up. But I think, and this is a fairly new discovery. We were talking about it with somebody else. I think that in some ways, the timing of me being introduced to them mirrors the movie in a way, and that I showed up a little bit later and kind of got my feet wet quickly and met everybody, and fairly quickly after we started rolling. And not unlike the experience of Skip sort of coming in, convincing them, let's go, and becoming sort of the leader of their journey. I think that I think the progression that happened in real life off screen was the same, and I became very friendly and loved all of them. I think they're all uniquely talented and have a lot to offer. So courageous and brave and willing to try different things, which for me is the most admirable quality for an actor. So I really enjoyed working with Chris, with all of them, and really becoming a part of that small group. I mean, we talked, it was really just in real life, or in the real life of the movie, it was me in a bus with those guys, and that was all it was. And us in Columbus, that's a lot how it was too. So I really enjoyed it, and loved the process of making the movie and the people that were involved.
Thank you so much. Brian, did you want to say something about your podcast? I heard you talking about earlier that you have this home studio now. I know you do an office podcast, right?
I do. Well, yeah, and we've just launched Off the Beat is a new podcast available on iHeart and Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, I guess is the phrase that everybody says. We're talking to different people in entertainment. We've talked to virtually everyone from The Office now, and last week we started talking to some more folks. So Eric Stone Street coming up from Modern Family, and Allison Hannigan from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and How I Met Your Mother, and Rob Riggle, and a bunch of others coming up. So I'm really excited. I've really been enjoying the process of finding out the moments that help build all of these people's careers. So I'm having a great time with that.
Oh yeah, I gotta listen to it. What part of Atlanta before we go?
Sandy Springs. So
Okay,
just inside you, right? You were just a little further out, but not far.
Yeah,
Adjacent.
Marietta, all that same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.